something strange is going on. For some reason, they don't want to tell the people, and they should, because the people are really, I mean, they happen to be over Bedminster.
I don't believe that the United States of America, with its military capabilities, does not know what these objects are.
All of a sudden, from my left rear, there was a really strong light. It lit up the entire cab of my cruiser to the point where I was having a hard time driving because I really couldn't see it. I was blinded by it.
Between the years 2004 and 2006, the United States government carried out a series of intensive expeditions in Greenland. Conducted under a veil of extreme secrecy, these operations coincided with the height of the Iraq War, keeping the international media's attention almost entirely fixed on the conflict in the Middle East. As a result, U.S. activities in the Arctic territory unfolded with little public scrutiny and virtually no coverage from mainstream news outlets. The limited information available on these expeditions was further compounded by the still nascent influence of internet forums, which at the time lacked the reach and dissemination power they would later develop. The secrecy surrounding these missions, along with Greenland's selection as their setting, has raised questions about the true nature of American interests in the region. While official explanations for the U.S. presence in Greenland have traditionally revolved around strategic and scientific concerns, the operations conducted during those years have fueled speculation due to the absence of detailed records or official statements clarifying their objectives. The timing, coinciding with a large-scale war, suggests that the U.S. administration may have capitalized on the global distraction to pursue activities that, under normal circumstances, would have faced far greater scrutiny. America's interest in Greenland is nothing new. The island's geostrategic location, vast natural resources, and crucial role in Arctic monitoring have long made it a focal point for global powers. However, the operations conducted during the aforementioned period have drawn attention due to the lack of available information, giving rise to various speculations about the true objectives pursued in the region. This precedent takes on a new dimension when considered alongside the renewed American interest in Greenland in later years, particularly under the administration of Donald Trump. In this context, it is worth questioning whether the United States' fixation on Greenland is merely an expansionist impulse, or if, instead, it stems from more complex motivations that have yet to be publicly disclosed. From the scarce information available regarding the expeditions carried out in the early years of the 21st century, the following events are known in the chronological order presented below. The constant monitoring conducted by U.S. agencies in strategically significant regions led to the review of a troubling report during the summer of 1999. The document detailed a series of unusual events in smaller towns across Greenland, focusing on the sudden exodus of a group of inhabitants, many of indigenous descent, who abandoned their villages without prior notice or any apparent justification. What was most unsettling was that their departure was not driven by adverse climate changes, supply shortages, or evident security concerns. From an environmental and social standpoint, there were no immediate reasons to explain such a large-scale displacement. When initial inspections were conducted in the now deserted villages, it was noted that the houses, at least externally, remained intact, showing no signs of deterioration or prolonged abandonment. However, upon entering the interiors, investigators encountered a phenomenon both peculiar and difficult to classify. The floors of many homes displayed unusual deformations, organic-looking protrusions that extended irregularly across the rooms. Upon closer examination, these structures bore a striking resemblance to thick black cables, intertwined or seemingly fused to the surfaces in a chaotic arrangement. One of the most unsettling discoveries occurred when attempts were made to manipulate these formations. When pressure was applied, the fibers exuded a thick, dark liquid that, upon contact with the surrounding environment, produced small electrical discharges, both visibly and to the touch. Initial tests indicated that the material exhibited anomalous growth properties, spreading disproportionately across any surface it was placed on. Even in controlled laboratory conditions, the substance continued to expand without any signs of inhibition, raising immediate concern among specialists. When a team of U.S. scientists arrived in Greenland for a more detailed analysis, they found that the expansion of these structures was not limited to the abandoned homes. In the short time that had passed since the communities were evacuated, the formations had already colonized a significant portion of the urban landscape. They were found in public buildings such as schools and shops, adhering to walls, ceilings, and floors with an alarming rate of proliferation. Reports obtained from American sources regarding anomalies recorded in recent years mentioned a peculiar phenomenon in certain mining settlements. In these areas, a group of Danish miners was afflicted by an unusual flu, whose symptoms did not match any known respiratory illnesses in the region. Greenlandic authorities, who conducted investigations into the outbreak, described the disease as puzzling, unable to determine a clear cause or identify a source for its emergence. Though not fatal, the illness was marked by a series of uncommon symptoms and a notably high incidence among workers. The most startling aspect of this episode was that, despite the lack of a concrete explanation for the illness's origin, medical examinations of the affected individuals revealed a series of unconventional results. Most notably, doctors observed a significant increase in cellular excitation and heightened neuronal electrical activity, something previously undocumented in cases of respiratory infections. These findings, which included electroencephalographic recordings and cerebrospinal fluid analyses, displayed anomalous patterns suggesting an alteration in neural processes and hyperactivity in cerebral connections, highly atypical for a common flu. While the immediate effects of these alterations were not entirely evident, they appeared to have the potential for long-term systemic damage. Though the precise extent of the consequences was uncertain, medical experts warned that the aftermath could be difficult to predict and would likely result in a gradual deterioration of essential bodily functions. The nervous systems of those affected seemed to be experiencing an unusual overload, one that could have lasting repercussions on the miners' health. A crucial element that the miners themselves pointed out in their testimonies was that the illness emerged shortly after they discovered a strange object in the mining deposits. They described cables that seemed to be electrified, yet they couldn't determine their origin or purpose. These cables, which apparently weren't part of any known mining infrastructure, were found in one of the least explored sections of the site. Their presence was particularly unsettling, as some miners linked the discovery to the onset of the illness, suggesting that the source of the affliction might be tied to a phenomenon not yet understood. A few years later, during the Iraq War, the U.S. Navy deployed a specialized unit to inspect semi-urban areas affected by the anomalies reported in Greenland. Aiming to gather detailed data and better understand the nature of these events, the operation was outfitted with mobile laboratories and supplies transported by ships stationed along the island's southern coast. The deployment of advanced technology, including satellite detection systems, provided unprecedentedly precise images of the region, revealing something that had never been documented before. In the Chingwa Valley, peculiar structures had appeared, colossal in size and entirely absent from any previous records. The discovery triggered an immediate reaction among analysts, as these structures, rising in the middle of the valley as if they had appeared overnight, bore no relation to any known geological formation in the region. From a distance, they resembled gigantic black monoliths, leading some specialists to initially speculate that they might be remnants of ancient sculptures erected by the island's indigenous peoples. This hypothesis, though intriguing, lost credibility as more detailed studies were conducted. The first field observations ruled out any connection to materials traditionally used in human construction. These were neither carved stones nor artificial structures left behind by any pre-existing culture. Preliminary analyses indicated that the composition of these black masses was similar to the substance that, according to earlier reports, had consumed the homes of indigenous communities. But the most unsettling feature of these monoliths was not just their material composition, it was the unusual energy they seemed to emit. Measuring instruments detected a fluctuating electric field in their vicinity, puzzling specialists, as there was no obvious energy source in the area to account for the phenomenon. The behavior of this substance was erratic, and at times nearby electronic equipment recorded inexplicable fluctuations. The discovery further reinforced the connection between these monoliths and the anomalous events recorded years earlier in the mining settlements. When comparing data, experts found that the same anomalous electrical activity observed in the medical examinations of the affected miners was also present in the vicinity of these structures. To prevent any leaks to the media, authorities opted to destroy the monoliths using flamethrowers and explosives. A few samples were transported by military ships to American territory for further study. However, researchers soon faced an unforeseen problem. These samples began to grow rapidly inside the isolation chambers where they were being carefully contained, expanding to a size that posed a serious risk to the vessel. The solution was the most practical one to avoid disaster. The samples were cast into the Arctic Ocean, and the area was monitored for several years to prevent any potential proliferation from the seafloor. It wasn't long before submarine reconnaissance missions revealed the presence of similar structures deep underwater. Using remotely operated vehicles and three-dimensional mapping scanners, exploration teams detected formations at various depths that bore the same monolithic appearance as those found in the Chingwa Valley. However, unlike what had been observed on land, these underwater structures appeared to grow at a significantly slower rate. Numerous benthic organisms, including sponge colonies, corals, and other filter-feeding invertebrates, had attached themselves to the structures, forming layers of biomass that appeared to limit their expansion. The possibility that these organisms were feeding on the substance composing the underwater monoliths became a subject of intense study, as it suggested a biological degradation process that had not been observed in their terrestrial counterparts. This interaction with the marine environment marked a significant contrast to what was happening on the surface, where the structures seemed to emerge unimpeded and maintain continuous growth. In total, the missions identified at least 50 of these structures scattered across different areas of the ocean floor. Some were located in relatively shallow regions, accessible to conventional exploration equipment, while others rose from deeper trenches where extreme pressure and harsh conditions made direct analysis far more challenging. The UFO phenomenon that went viral towards the end of 2024, especially in the United States, sparked a new wave of collective hysteria. At the same time, these sightings have been exploited for political gain, used to push certain agendas favorable to specific sectors of power. However, even though the phenomenon is increasingly being mistaken for simple drone sightings or objects like weather balloons, long-range lasers, and even military aircraft, it has undeniably piqued the interest of professionals in the aeronautics field.
Just had another one show up about my 1 o'clock, about 1,000 feet high, zipping towards us and then back out towards the ocean, and red in color, moving at extreme speed. So I don't even know how to describe how fast it's moving.
Typical Nim Foxtrot, Roger. You are cleared to maneuver as necessary, left and right, to avoid the UFO out there, and all the reports you've given us are good information. Appreciate it.
From another angle, though, the way politicians and the media are leveraging this phenomenon might be slipping out of their control. Almost by accident, they could be drawing attention to a highly publicized case that hasn't seen coverage since the 90s. Every sighting, every news report, political statement, and social media comment seems to be shedding light on the strangest and most dangerous experiment humanity has ever faced. Behind these sightings lies an event accidentally witnessed almost 30 years ago, one whose consequences are increasingly revealing that human ambition has reached its limit. The story of Babylon's return places us at the center of two critical events, which you'll find detailed in the following videos. Here, they will be summarized. Point number 1. The testing of the Great Hololuminescence Cannon, a device developed in collaboration between the Pentagon and certain European security agencies. Issues with our natural satellite led the world's leading physicists and astronomers, in the interest of preserving global peace, to conceal the greatest catastrophe humanity could face in the coming years. As far-fetched as it may seem, in the 1990s, abnormally deep fissures were discovered on the moon. After meticulous study, emergency missions were even dispatched to the satellite. Scientists found that the moon's trajectory was tilting dramatically toward Earth. Combined with our planet's gravitational pull, and as the fractures on the lunar surface worsened, it became clear that sooner or later, our satellite would break apart and crash down in fragments upon the Earth. The chaos and collective tragedy that would arise from humanity learning of this far in advance would inevitably lead to absolute anarchy. Desperation would consume society, unraveling any sense of order and meaning in life. To address this, the world's leading scientists worked tirelessly on a technology that, although originally developed for military purposes, had to be repurposed for global security. This led to the creation of the Great Hololuminescence Cannon, designed to distort the reflective processes of Earth's atmosphere, generating a false image not only of the moon, but of the entire night sky. This illusion was meant to persist until world powers could devise the most effective solution to this inevitable cosmic accident. The second point ties directly to the first and aims to explain the lunar fissure, an anomaly that destabilized the celestial body without any prior warning. Old photographs from lunar missions revealed clues that, once accidentally leaked to the internet, sparked widespread speculation about the presence of structures on the moon's surface. These theories flooded YouTube and various forums, championed by those fervently defending their conspiratorial ideas. And as it turns out, the truth wasn't all that far from their claims. NASA indeed uncovered unsettling photographs of massive structures rising from the depths of these enormous fissures. Colossal in size and ominous in design, they became a formidable challenge for space agencies, who had to handle the matter in absolute secrecy, fully aware that it could easily spiral beyond their control. Due to their peculiar shapes, these structures were dubbed the New Towers of Babel. And while the name might seem like a crude coincidence, the explanation behind this phenomenon could in fact be traced back to one of the most mythical cities in human history. During the post-election period, celebrities and figures of political significance gathered at President Donald Trump's private residence. Without a doubt, all kinds of formal and informal agreements must have taken place there in anticipation of the American magnate's second term. These meetings occurred at both public celebrations, commemorations of right-wing leaders, and others held in the strictest privacy. Among those who met with Donald Trump away from the prying eyes of the media was Giacomo Ciccarelli, the press chief for NASA's lunar exploration program in 1999. While we are all familiar with Trump's aversion to certain scientific facts and his refusal to heed the international academic community on key issues, this invitation stood out as particularly curious. Ciccarelli wasn't just a press chief. His strategic role was tied to the concealment of the Hololuminescence Grand Cannon project and its consequences. There was no one better suited than him to step forward and reiterate the alternative truth that had been fed to the world over 20 years ago. In one of Ciccarelli's reports, during his close work with the Department of Defense, he carried a series of documents totaling nearly 500 pages on the investigation into the moon disaster. Known as the Babylon case, it had been photographing strange black organic-looking structures and others that shone brightly, orbiting Earth since the launch of the International Space Station. Only one page ever leaked, copied by one of Ciccarelli's team members. That copy, which circulated in the early days of internet forums and was thought lost, resurfaced last year when a Reddit user reviewed the first season of this story. During the American intervention in Iraq in 2004, while soldiers and government agents focused on controlling the supposed social chaos, others ventured deep into the land in search of answers to the Babylon case. Scouring every abandoned facility and the countless caves scattered across the Mesopotamian desert, what was initially believed to be precious minerals buried underground soon drew attention for entirely different reasons. Upon studying the caves, before even considering extracting the stones, they noticed the rocks began to glow intensely. The reddish light they emitted at times was so strong that more than one geologist on site suffered from eye burns and irritation. What first seemed like a rare phenomenon found in certain eastern gemstones soon revealed a possible connection to a much more peculiar situation. At first, no explanation or correlation could be drawn, and nearly 10 years passed before, in 2013, 3 years after the Iraq War documents were leaked, the first theories began to emerge. The most significant and critical theory, suspected to be included in Ciccarelli's documents, suggests a link between the peak glowing periods of these stones and major UFO sightings. Apparently, according to this theory, the luminescent responses observed in the rocks of Iraq are caused by electromagnetic interference between atmospheric holographic projections and structures orbiting the Earth. Since the Grand Canyon was designed using technology that had never been tested before, risking any abnormalities it might produce, no one anticipated it could alter the properties of certain minerals. As a result, in some areas, entire forests were wiped out, burned by a strange luminescence that disrupted nature and defied the physical laws of the region. In addition, in recent years, some people have been publishing strange photographs that closely resemble the phenomenon that affected several U.S. cities when impossible formations descended upon densely populated areas. These formations shared the same characteristics, dark appendages that consumed walls and entire structures of certain buildings. The footage I'm about to show was uncovered in the midst of a massive leak of classified documents in the year 2011, an event that compromised files belonging to both the Central Intelligence Agency of the United States and the Holy See. Among the vast trove of declassified materials were procedural documents, transcribed testimonies, and numerous images concerning highly sensitive matters. However, one of the most enigmatic elements of the leak was a fragment of video dated to 1975, which appeared to be part of a longer recording used for informational purposes. The footage contained a warning about a discovery said to have been made after a prolonged period of searching. It referenced the location of an anomaly described as divine and essential to the experience of connection between God and humanity. Moreover, the footage suggested that this anomaly did not manifest within the conventional bounds of reality as understood in the physical realm, but rather, its position corresponded to a temporal structure outside the standard chronological framework.
The following footage is a warning capsule issued by the 6th Committee for Divine Anomaly Security of Vatican City. Tests conducted in Simulation 7 and 9 of the historical timeline have identified the point in time where we have successfully traced the arrival of the New Jerusalem. The simulation has detected its emergence at some moment in the year 2095. Our Divine Anomaly Security teams have witnessed the arrival of the new city. Below is a series of recommendations for establishing contact with the New Jerusalem. First, the team must remain equipped at all times with specialized thermal isolation suits, as well as goggles designed to protect against excessive lumen. Second, maintain unwavering faith at all times. Third, avoid and ignore all angelic entities that manifest. All of them are magnetic aberrations caused by the mundane divine interface.
June 2nd of 2011 passed unnoticed by most of the world, with no major international event marking the day. Yet, in certain corners of the internet, that date took on a singular significance. On that day, a collection of declassified files released by an anonymous group began circulating online, revealing a series of confidential exchanges between the Holy See and the Central Intelligence Agency of the United States. What initially seemed to be routine institutional communications soon exposed a long-standing collaboration dating back to the early years of the 20th century, one centered around a matter of extraordinary magnitude. Among the leaked documents, reference was made to a particular event that took place during the 1960s and 70s in the context of the space race. With the arrival of humankind on the moon and the advancement of astronomical observation technologies, indications began to emerge of the existence of a colossal structure located in deep space beyond the Oort cloud. What set this object apart from any other celestial body detected up to that point was its unusual geometric shape. Rather than exhibiting an irregular or spheroidal structure, as would be expected according to the laws of planetary physics, this formation was a perfect cube of staggering dimensions. The sheer impossibility of explaining its existence through natural processes immediately triggered high-level security protocols within the Vatican hierarchy. The discovery of this structure was interpreted by certain factions within the Holy See as the literal fulfillment of descriptions found in the Book of Revelation, particularly concerning the arrival of the New Jerusalem. According to Scripture, the Holy City descends from the heavens in a perfectly defined cubic form, with each of its sides measuring 2,200 kilometers in length, width, and height. This event is described as a harbinger of the end times, marking the definitive establishment of the divine kingdom on earth and the imminent second coming of Christ. The correlation between the shape of the detected structure and its biblical description led to an immediate reassessment of eschatological timelines within certain ecclesiastical circles. If the celestial city was already on its way, its proximity signified that humanity stood at a definitive turning point in its history. For years, the Vatican had worked in secret on the development of a specialized mechanism designed to study and visualize cosmic-scale events in relation to the future of humanity. This device, concealed from public knowledge, allowed for the exploration of alternative or parallel timelines, granting the Holy See a unique perspective on potential future scenarios. The procedure involved selecting a group of specially trained priests, individuals with profound theological and scientific knowledge, who were prepared to interact with these timelines in a controlled manner and for a limited duration. The objective was to obtain critical information about the course of events that would shape humanity's destiny, as well as to identify the most crucial moments in which the Church's intervention could prove decisive. The discovery that modifications at the atomic level could generate alterations in the universe's timeline led to an unprecedented breakthrough in the history of science. It was determined that these changes not only influenced the structural arrangement of matter, but also directly impacted the very fabric of reality, allowing for the manifestation of events and objects that under normal conditions would only exist in yet unrealized futures. Based on these principles, the structure known as the Portal of St. John was designed and constructed, a gateway that, through precise control of such alterations, enabled the transportation of matter to alternative realities. The portal's operation marked a technological revolution like no other, but its use was not without significant risks. It was observed that anyone who passed through the structure experienced a drastic reduction in life expectancy. Over time, clinical studies revealed that the process of shifting between realities induced severe physiological damage, primarily at the neurological and cellular levels, compromising the biological stability of those exposed. Added to this was the inevitable onset of severe mental disorders, requiring strict and continuous pharmacological management. It was determined that the only effective way to administer the necessary medication was through an uninterrupted intravenous supply, which led to the development of specific protocols for the adaptation of travelers upon their return. The first individuals who crossed the portal lacked the necessary support measures, and as a result, their physical and mental deterioration progressed rapidly, ultimately leaving them in a state of total medical dependency. Most of them perished in a state of complete debilitation, with no possibility of recovery. Over time, treatment methods were refined, allowing travelers to maintain a relative level of functionality in their daily lives. Portable devices were implemented to administer medication continuously, prolonging the clinical stability of the subjects and enabling them to retain a semblance of normalcy in their social integration. The use of this technology was not new, though it remained shrouded in secrecy due to its sensitive nature and the inherent risks of manipulating time and events. Between 1974 and 1975, the Vatican employed this capability to investigate a specific timeline in which the New Jerusalem, as described in Revelation, made its appearance on Earth. This phenomenon was not merely a literal fulfillment of Scripture, but marked the realization of a prophecy that had long been regarded as a matter of utmost importance within ecclesiastical thought. It was in this context that a select group of priests was sent to the temporal fragment where the New Jerusalem descended from the heavens, just as the sacred texts foretold. These men of faith, acting as observers, were tasked with meticulously studying and documenting various aspects of the celestial city's arrival. Among their responsibilities was analyzing how people of different religions reacted to the event. Additionally, the team was to examine the possible geological, social, and philosophical consequences, observing how the world might be reshaped in terms of political, economic, and societal structure. The results were, in every sense, catastrophic. The arrival of the colossal cube unleashed a magnetic wave of unimaginable intensity, spreading across the planet with uncontrollable force, but not in the traditional sense. It was detected that some force swept through the sphere, dissolving vast amounts of synthetic and organic material without producing shockwaves. The few who survived did not do so by luck, but because of their precise location at the moment of the catastrophe. Those sheltered in underground bunkers, men of power with access to private refuges, managed to evade the magnetic wave. Likewise, miners and workers in other subterranean facilities temporarily escaped the slow annihilation unfolding on the surface. However, even for them, survival remained uncertain. The magnitude of the event was such that it left no room for religious interpretation. While the remaining humanity struggled to grasp what had happened, the specialized team sent from the Vatican focused on studying the nature of the Great Promised City. Despite the catastrophe, the structure remained absolutely unchanged from the moment of its descent. Its mass and volume suggested that any object of such magnitude should have caused gravitational disturbances, yet none were observed. Nor did it leave any impact on the Earth's surface, no crater, no fractures, no displacement of matter. The atmosphere remained undisturbed, with no detectable changes in pressure or in the composition of the surrounding gases. With extreme caution and taking every possible safeguard, a team of explorers managed to enter the structure. The entrance, far from being a conventional opening, appeared more like a fluctuation on the cube's surface, a distortion that allowed passage. Once inside, what they encountered defied all expectations. The space bore no resemblance to any comprehensible architecture, nor did it follow a logical arrangement of corridors and rooms. Instead, it unfolded into a series of colossal, elongated vaults devoid of any apparent functionality. These vaults had a predominantly metallic structure, though their exact composition was impossible to determine with the available instruments. Their spherical shape suggested an intentional design, yet they contained no visible mechanisms or inscriptions. In the deeper regions they managed to explore, the investigators found areas where temperatures soared to extreme levels, reaching thresholds beyond human endurance without specialized equipment. These regions, despite their hostility, did not appear to result from natural thermal processes or any evident mechanical activity. They simply existed, pockets of intense heat within the vast and seemingly inert structure. During the 39 hours of the expedition, no conclusive information was obtained regarding the nature or purpose of the cube. No signs of activity were detected within, nor were there any hidden mechanisms. No entity emerged from its interior, nor did any phenomenon suggest its function. However, the complete absence of answers was not synonymous with safety. The cube's apparent inactivity could be merely a transitional state, a pause in a process whose outcome remained beyond human understanding.
The cube is incomprehensibly labyrinthine. No matter where you go, you end up in elongated corridors that lead to the vast illuminated chamber. The heat is frankly a problem, even for our specialized equipment. While the suit holds up, at times the oxygenation system sustains minor damage, preventing us from continuing. Fortunately, there is an escape route that seems unaffected by any alterations. Some corridors, however, are never the same twice. I've left an illustrative note with a possible internal map of the cube. Given the intricate layout of this place, we suspect it should lead us to a deeper core, though we have no idea what we might find there. Unfortunately, with the time we had left, we won't be able to reach it. But I must say, this place does not feel entirely sacred, at least not in the strict Christian sense.
The Mars Pathfinder mission was a space exploration initiative launched on December 4, 1996, successfully landing on the Martian surface on July 4, 1997. Its primary goal was to demonstrate the viability of new technologies for exploring the Red Planet, while also gathering geological, atmospheric, and climate data through its lander module and the small rover Sojourner. The latter, equipped with cameras and analytical tools, provided detailed images and data on the composition of the soil and rocks in the Ares Vallis region, an ancient flood channel chosen as the landing site due to its scientific significance. However, among the vast collection of images and measurements transmitted back to Earth, some were kept under strict confidentiality by the agency overseeing the mission. These images, never released to the public, appeared to confirm the existence of an anomaly that had been a subject of speculation since the 1960s. They revealed formations whose morphology and arrangement were difficult to attribute to conventional geological processes. Unlike the natural structures commonly observed on Mars, such as canyons, dunes, or regolith deposits, these appeared to exhibit organized patterns and a distribution that suggested some degree of autonomous proliferation and growth. The discovery was not confined solely to the Martian environment. For decades, some studies had suggested the presence of similar structures deep within the Earth, primarily in mining sites. Analyses of these underground formations had hinted at the existence of unusual configurations in regions of extreme depth, though the lack of concrete evidence made it impossible to formulate definitive hypotheses. With the images captured by Mars Pathfinder, a disturbing coincidence emerged. The same structures of undefined nature and seemingly expansive behavior appeared to exist both within the Earth's subterranean depths and across the vast Martian plains. The origin and composition of these formations remained unresolved, and the available data did not clarify whether their existence was tied to geological phenomena still unknown beyond Earth. The withheld images, analyzed under strict confidentiality protocols, reinforced the idea that underground activity on both Earth and Mars might be linked by a yet unidentified mechanism, although some of the theories ventured into the realm of the improbable. According to records and collected evidence regarding what has come to be known as the Babel Towers phenomenon, it is evident that colossal structures have existed throughout the planet's history, their nature and purpose still shrouded in mystery. However, the available data presents significant inconsistencies. On one hand, pictorial and narrative records describe events related to these edifices in specific geographic and temporal contexts, but when cross-referenced with historical and archaeological sources, they do not seem to align with the locations or time periods reported. On the other hand, accounts of similar phenomena have surfaced in entirely different eras and regions, suggesting the possible existence of a recurring pattern over time. Ancient accounts, collected from various cultures across the world, suggest that these structures may not be mere human creations, but rather imposed or even seeded by entities whose nature transcends conventional understanding. If such entities exist, they would challenge the human concept of three-dimensional space and linear time, operating within a perceptual dimension beyond our sensory capacity. This limitation not only affects direct human perception, but also extends to the technology developed to enhance our senses. Observational instruments, being designed from a finite understanding of reality, inherit the same constraints as their creators, implying that certain phenomena might, by their very nature, remain beyond the reach of any traditional detection method. Furthermore, the hypothesis arises that Earth, far from being merely an inhabited planet, has functioned for millions of years as a node within an energy structure of unknown scale. Some theories suggest it could be a form of synthetic hive, a reservoir of forces yet to be understood, with a purpose beyond humanity's interpretive capacity. From this perspective, the planet is not simply a home for life, but also a testing ground for a cosmic influence that defies the categories established by science as we know it.